Hello everyone. Today we're going to be looking at how to use guitar pedals as outboard gear, using them as external effects which you can record into your DAW. This can be really handy for blending in organic sounds from analog compression and distortion, or having effects which you have immediate hands-on control over, meaning you can automate these in real time without having to use a mouse or keyboard. You can do this on pretty much any DAW that exists right now, and with any audio interface, given that it has more than one set of outputs. Today we're going to be using the Behringer UMC404 as our audio interface, which is really handy because of this mix knob we have in the front panel, which blends between the direct inputs of the audio interface and the signal coming from our DAW. For our effects, we have the Electro Harmonix Crayon Overdrive, as well as the Strymon Big Sky, but feel free to use any effects you have lying around. Some great examples I have used in the past are compressor pedals, vibrato chorus pedals, analog delays, fuzz pedals, and you can get some really interesting results from experimenting. Essentially what we will be doing today is sending audio out of Logic Pro X into these guitar pedals, which will then be recorded back into Logic. So let's look at how everything is connected. We have the UMC404 hooked up to my iMac via USB, which is going into Logic. We have outputs 1 and 2 connected to my speakers so that we can hear what's going on. And output 3 has been connected to the input of the Crayon, which then goes into the Big Sky. And out of the Big Sky, we have 2 outputs going into channels 3 and 4. Now on Logic, we're going to have to route the audio so that everything works correctly. So here we have a stereo drum track, which I have bounced down from some MIDI drums. And the first thing we're going to do is take this drum track and we're going to create a send to go to a bus. Now because the overdrive pedal I have hooked up only has one input, we're going to set this bus to mono. And the next thing we're going to do is set the output to go to the physical output 3 of our audio interface. So now what we're going to do is we're going to hold Option and click here, and it's going to send the signal from this track into the bus. So now the signal is going to be going out of output 3 into the Crayon, into the Big Sky. If we hit play and have a listen to these drums, you can see that the signal is going into our bus, meaning the signal is also traveling into our pedals. Now this is when the mix knob on the UMC404 is going to come in really handy. If we have the mix all the way up, we're only going to be hearing what's coming out of our DAW, and we won't be able to hear what these pedals are doing. So I'm going to turn the mix knob halfway so that we hear a blend of Logic Pro as well as the pedals. And this enables us to listen to what's going into the interface with 0 latency. So now what I'm going to do is play the drum track, and halfway through I'm going to engage the Crayon and mess around with the knobs, and we'll see what that sounds like. Great, so I'm pretty happy with where that sounds at the moment. So what I'm going to do now is record the sound into Logic. And the way we do that is I'm going to create a new audio track with inputs 3 and 4. And then all we need to do is just record, and this drum track will pass through our pedals and then get recorded onto this track here. Let's do that. Great. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the Big Sky, but first I'm just going to name this track Crayon, and I'm going to duplicate the track because the inputs and outputs are exactly the same. And I'm just going to call this track Big Sky. Now when you're working with any time-based effects like reverb, delay, or modulation, it's best to keep your mix knob at full wet so that you can blend in the effect later. This means you have individual control over your reverb level as well as your dry signal and your DAW. Now something to keep in mind is that we can actually automate these effects in real time as we're recording them. So what I'm going to do is mute the Crayon track, engage the Big Sky, and then what I'm going to do is I've got this magneto algorithm up, which simulates a multi-headed tape echo. Now what I'm going to do is record this into Logic, but while I'm doing it, I'm going to muck around with this decay knob, which controls the delay time of the tape echo. And let's hear how that sounds. Great, now as you can hear, if we listen to this, you can actually hear that the automation is recorded into the audio. No pointing and clicking, and with how tactile everything is, you can really tinker with the sounds in a more organic way. So now, we have two audio tracks, one with distortion and one with delay on it. Let's turn these both down, and then we're going to listen and blend the effects in. I'm going to set the mix knob on my UMC404 all the way up. And let's give this a go. Now, an issue you might run into while doing this is latency. Because of the amount of time it takes for audio to pass through all this equipment and get recorded back into Logic, you might experience some weird phase issues going on. So for example, if we blend this Crayon track to the drums, you can hear about here that we're getting this phasey sound. Now, to fix this, what you can do is add a sample delay to the original track, like so. And let's link these two and mess around with these knobs until we can get the signal to sound a bit more in phase. Let's blend this back in. You can hear when I disable the sample delay, it gets a little bit more phasey. Something else we can do is we can actually flip the phase of the track as well and see what that does. Now you can hear with both the sample delay and the phase inversion that the signal does sound a little bit better. Let's bypass both of these and hear how that sounds. You can really hear that of the phasiness coming up. Right, so I'm going to leave those in and blend the Big Sky in. Now you might not want an effect this extreme in your track, but it can be really cool for adding in extra effects in certain sections for certain songs. Another issue you may find yourself running into is impedance mismatch. Although pedals like the Strymon Big Sky here do accept line level, many guitar pedals like overdrives, compressors, and fuzz pedals are designed to take a high impedance signal from a guitar, not a low impedance signal like the outputs we have here on the UMC404. To correct this, you would need a reamp box to match your impedance, but as you heard in today's example, ended up sounding okay without one. So it's not 100% necessary, but it is something to keep in mind if you aren't getting the sound you want. Now, although you may find it a lot faster and easier to just use plugins, having external effects like this can come in really handy for when you need some unique sounds added to your mix. Producer Mick Gordon, who's famous for doing the Doom soundtracks, has spoken about how he would run all of his mixes through compressor pedals to get more organic sounding results. Vance Powell has also been seen doing similar things. I once saw an example of him using an analog delay pedal on his drum bus and mixing them in to create the sort of when the levee breaks kind of echoey feel. Well, that ends it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a lovely day.